Welcome, everybody, and thank you for choosing some time or choosing to spend some time with me and Adobe here today at the Celebrate event. My name is Tim Plumer, and you can actually see a picture of me right there, and I'll explain why that picture's there in just a moment. I do want to mention that this is being recorded. I want to confirm that with my tech group. Yep, this is being recorded, so if you have to step away, you can always come back and watch the recording. So, anyway, as I said, my name is Tim Plumer, and I'm a Solutions Consulting Manager here at Adobe, and I work specifically with the education group, and I'm really excited to be here at the Celebrate event because your school has made an investment in the Adobe products, the entirety of the Adobe Creative Cloud products. And so what I want to do is just give you a little walkthrough of what you have at your disposal. We're going to focus on 3 applications among many, although I will talk about what the rest of the applications are before we get started with the demonstrations. We're going to focus on Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and Adobe Acrobat DC, which is the newest version of our Acrobat product, which has some very exciting capabilities that we'll take a quick look at. But before I actually get into the demonstration, I just want to kind of set the tone a little bit and help you understand what you have access to, because it's actually a pretty impressive set of tools. What you're looking at is Adobe.com, and you'll notice that Adobe.com recognizes me, and that's because Adobe, I don't know if you're aware of this, but Adobe has a variety of marketing sort of science tools that are designed to kind of keep up with what you're doing, understand what you're doing on Adobe.com if you sign in with an Adobe ID. And I have done that. So you can see I'm logged in, and that's my actual picture right there. That's actually a pretty good picture of me, so we'll keep it. And the reason that we're doing that is because it allows us to give you a much more personalized experience on Adobe.com. For example, if you want to learn more about something like After Effects, as you start to engage with After Effects on the website using some of the tutorials, and I'm going to show you where those tutorials are located at the end, so stay tuned for that because it will help you to understand how to use these tools. As I interact with those, it'll kind of say, okay, well, he's obviously looking to learn more about animation, and it will try to provide me that kind of information as I go forward. But the other thing that I want to use this to do is to show you what you have access to here. So, as I said, your institution has made an investment in all of these tools for you to use at your disposal on university equipment. In fact, if you talk to the tech group, you'll find out that you actually have access to what's called home user rights. For the low price of $10 per year, you have access to all of these applications, these desktop applications. So as I said, we're going to focus on Photoshop. We'll spend some time with Illustrator, and then we'll scroll all the way down to Acrobat Pro DC. But I just wanted to touch on some of the other names that you'll see here, just so you can understand what they do and why you might be interested in them. For example, if you're an amateur or even a semi-professional photographer, then you might be interested in Lightroom. That's a photography product, and it's really a focused product. It does a lot of what Photoshop does, but it's focused on the photography workflow. If you create printed materials or PDF materials that some might be printed and some might just be delivered electronically, then you're probably going to be interested in Adobe InDesign. It allows you to bring typography, images, and other assets together to create a document, whether it's a static document for print or even a dynamic electronic document using formats like EPUB, PDF, and even it can even create some HTML. If you're interested in video, then I'll turn your attention to Premiere Pro and After Effects, starting with Premiere Pro because that's our video editing product, and then After Effects is the tool that allows you to do those things that you see in commercials, the crazy effects where words move around the screen and things like that. They're certainly robust, but again, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and understand, or at least begin to understand how to use them through our tutorials. And then last but not least, there's a whole set of tools that are designed for creating content specifically for the web. So you may have heard of Adobe Dreamweaver. That's more of a coder's kind of tool for creating web pages and websites. We also have Adobe Views, which is a tool that allows you to create web pages and sites without any code whatsoever. It's more of like a page layout product. In fact, it doesn't require much more than PowerPoint skills in order for you to be able to create a really exciting and engaging web presence. And then there's a variety of other tools, and I'll let you go ahead and explore those on your own, but they're sort of auxiliary tools that you might use in conjunction with the ones that I mentioned. But you've got a lot of power here. And what I want to encourage you to do is to take advantage of that by going ahead and getting in touch with the IT staff to access the ones of these that you want. You don't have to grab them all. Maybe grab the ones that you know you need and a couple of extras that you want to experiment with, because I think you'll find you can create some really exciting and compelling communications. So I'm going to back up a step because there's another category that not a lot of people realize that's available, and actually some of these are available no matter what, they're free apps. We have a whole series of mobile apps, and the mobile apps are really designed to be used in conjunction with the desktop apps, but they're designed to allow you to capture your capture your inspiration wherever it may happen. So for example, we're going to take a look at in just a moment Adobe Sketch and Adobe Shape CC. Sketch is sort of akin to Photoshop. Adobe CC is a really cool product that allows you to capture things that Adobe Illustrator might work with. And because I'm going to show you those, I'll just point out that there are many, many of these apps, and they're all free and can be used with or in conjunction with or by themselves, in conjunction with CC or by themselves. So I would encourage you to experiment with those because there's some pretty interesting and frankly some fun stuff there. And again, we're going to see that in just a second. In fact, I'm going to switch over to my iPad right now, and we'll start in Adobe Sketch. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the Adobe Sketch product right there. Just tap it on my iPad. And what you can see is my attempt at a sketch. Now, I am not an artist, but when I'm out and about and thinking or sitting on the train or whatever, and I have an idea for a piece that I want to build, what I can do is use my stylus or the Adobe Ink hardware, that's sold separately. That doesn't come with a Creative Cloud account, to go ahead and sketch something up. So what I've got here is a skull that I'm working on, and I'm just going to add some lines underneath the eyes. And again, I'm not really an artist, but the purpose of Sketch is really to give me an idea of what I might want to create in Adobe Photoshop. Once I'm done with my sketch, I can tap on this little button here that brings up this little list of options to share it. So for example, I could save it to directly to my Creative Cloud account, which is my cloud storage that comes with Creative Cloud, or I could even just share it or save it on my device and then move it over into Dropbox or something like that. I can also get feedback directly, and what that would do is it would actually send it over to a product we have that's called Behance, which again, you can sign up and use Behance at no cost to do some things like get feedback, for example, by sending this up to Behance, and I would probably get destroyed because of my sketching capabilities, but that's not the point. The point is that I can go ahead and create this and then move it over to Photoshop for further work. So what I'm going to do is actually tap and send that over to Photoshop, and it will take a minute. You'll see that it'll spin, and then once it's done, it'll tell me that it's been moved to Photoshop, and it's actually moving it through the cloud right over to Adobe Photoshop, and there it is. So the purpose for doing this is that I'm not actually going to use this. What I wanted to do with this, now that I've been inspired and I've thought up what it is I kind of want to have my Photoshop file look like, then I can start using all of what Photoshop has to offer. For example, in this case, and people might not realize this, but Photoshop actually can take 3D models and allow you to move them around and position them. And that's what I've got here. I actually got this 3D model from, it was a 3D object that I got from a Radiolab episode where they talked about this skull and the impact or the impact of finding this skull. But what I want to do is I want to position it based on sort of how my sketch kind of made it look. And you can see there's a nice little shadow there. And then once I'm done in Photoshop, I can come over to my Layers panel, and if I want, I can go ahead and, in this case, I'm just going to do something really quick. I'm going to change the background color to white. But the goal that I have is I've gone all the way from my imagination on my iPad, sitting on a train somewhere, down to my desktop, and I've used the tools in Photoshop to convert this 3D object into something that I can now save as a JPEG file or a GIF file or whatever for use in a project, maybe in InDesign or Muse. So the mobile apps are not just designed to allow you to sketch. They're great for that. They do a great job with it. But they're also a way for you or an entry point for you to capture the spirit of what you imagine you'd like to do with the desktop apps, move it directly over to the desktop apps, and then get moving from there. Now, I show you this, and I started with this 3D thing, and that's a little risky because a lot of people are starting to think, oh, goodness, there's no way I'm going to learn how to use 3D tools. I don't know how to use 3D tools, I'll be honest with you. All I did was I went to the Radiolab website where they mentioned that this 3D model was available, downloaded it, opened it in Photoshop, and then just used the standard tools to move things around. But the reality is that Photoshop is even easier than this, and so what I want to do is walk a step back and just show you a couple of things that Photoshop can allow you to do even as a novice. So what we're looking at here is a shot that I took of some morning glories with my phone camera. I happen to have a Samsung. And because it's a little tiny camera and I drink too much coffee, it got shaky. And that's a blur problem that's very common with things like iPads and iPhones, though they are, or Samsungs. They are the most popular camera in use today. And so what our engineers are always doing, we're always looking for ways to make it easier for you to just get the job done. And so what I'm going to do is show you that under the filter menu, I've got a thing called Sharpen and a thing called Shake Reduction. Now, how do I know that Shake Reduction exists? I'll show you how I know because there was a tutorial on it. But once I know it exists, I know that I can just choose it. I'm just going to accept the defaults and click OK. And when I'm done, I have a much more usable image right off my iPhone or off my iPad. So instead of having to go out and try and reshoot that image or find another royalty-free version of this, I can go ahead and take or make use of an image that otherwise I would have had to throw away. And there are many, many features in Photoshop just exactly like that. They're designed to make it easier for you to get what you need from the image that you have versus having to sort of suffer with an image that isn't as good as you were hoping it would be. And although you can see that there are probably some artifacts down here, I might play around with the little sliders in that big dialog box, but frankly, this is much more usable, and frankly, I'd go ahead and use it. Now, I want to show you something else that Photoshop can do that's actually nothing short of amazing. So this petal down here has some of that sort of blurry artifacting, but the rest of the petals or the rest of the flowers look okay. So I'm just going to remove that flower. So watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the thing called the lasso tool. I'm going to put a loose lasso around that flower, and I'm going to choose Edit, Fill, and I'm going to use something called Content Aware Fill, and I'm done. Without having to use anything like the clone tool or all of the various really great robust tools that can be hard to learn, in Photoshop I've been able to put a circle around something, create an image where the flower's gone, it filled it in with some random leavery, so that now I've got an image that works. And then the last step I might take with this is to take the crop tool, and I'm going to hold the Shift key down, crop it down, and in the span of the amount of time it took me to tell you what I was doing, I was able to convert an image that really wasn't usable into not just an image that was usable, but the image that I need based on the project that I'm working for. And I can tell you that because I'm a manager, and I introduced myself as a solutions consulting manager because one of my colleagues who is also a manager likes to joke that we managers get lobotomized. We don't get to use the software on a daily basis like the people that we lead. And so I have been lobotomized as a manager, yet here I am able to work with Photoshop robustly, not because I make a study of it, but because the tools in Photoshop are set up to make that easier. Let me give you another example of this. And we're going to take the content concept even a little step further. So I've got this image of a hydrogen bomb explosion, and I need to do two things to it. First off, I need to clean up some of the blemishes that are in the file. I'm not going to clean them all up, but I'm going to clean some of them up just to give you a sense of how easy that is. And then I'm going to crop it and straighten it, and then have an image that is ready to go. And then I'll even add a little text to it and apply some styling to the text so you can see what you can get from Photoshop with very, very little interaction or prior knowledge. So I'm going to use a thing called, and I'm going to hold it open so you can see that it says it's the Spot Healing Brush Tool. And the Spot Healing Brush Tool actually has a thing called Content Aware that's based on the same technology that I showed you before. And I'm just going to drag a gray line over that scratch, missed a little bit there, and let go. I'm going to make a little blob up there, a little blob there, and one there, and then one more right there to clean up that little mess, and voila. Now I've got an image that is, again, it was an old image that I scanned that was really scratched up, but in a few clicks of the mouse, and it would take a few more clicks to finish up some of these little areas down here, but you can see that it happens fairly quickly. And I don't really have to know anything. Photoshop is doing all the heavy lifting for me. Now, last but not least, as I said, I need to crop it, so I'm going to open up the crop tool, and I'm going to crop out some of those trees down there. Whoops. Try that again. There we go. Crop out some of those trees, and I need to rotate it, and so all I'm going to do is just drag the little rotator, and I've got those nice grid lines that will help me line it up nicely, hit return. And what's great about that is that that crop is now done. That's what I'm going to have to work with. But if I change my mind, I can actually come back in, click again, and I can re-edit the crop because Photoshop never actually throws any of the information away. It always keeps it there for me so that if I decide, for example, that I really want more of the explosion but less of it this way, Bring it down there, hit return. Now I've got the usable image that I'm looking for. And of course, in Photoshop, this is a Photoshop file, but from Photoshop, I can do a save as, or a save for web, depending on what I want to do, and save this into 100 different formats, whether it's a JPEG file or maybe a PNG file or something like that, for use in a variety of other places. But there's one more thing that I really want to do with this to kind of indicate, what Photoshop can give me, because in this, I might want to label this image. Maybe this is going to be the header of a report that I'm going to do. So I'm just going to take the type tool, and I'll come over here, and I'm going to type HBOM. And that typeface is probably a little too, I don't know, jovial for what the subject matter. So I'm going to go with something a little bit more straight up. And with that selected, I'm going to open up what's called the Layers panel, and I have this whole set of effects that I can apply to that object because it's selected right there. And really all I want is the federally mandated drop shadow, which I think we have to have drop shadows on everything. So actually, you know what? I make that joke, but I kind of like it because it gives that just a little bit of a lift off the page, and it gives it some texture. So Adobe Photoshop is a product that allows you to very quickly work with images like this and dress them up by fixing up blemishes and things like that, but also adding to the image things like text, or you might want to draw a circle around something to indicate a specific thing that you might want to highlight in this particular project. Now, even though I showed the easy tools, and this isn't very hard, you may still be thinking to yourself, yeah, but I'm not going to remember how to do this. I'm going to launch Photoshop and see all these tools, and it's going to be crazy, and I'm not going to be able to get through it. Well, that's why I want to return back to adobe.com, because I'm going to go back a step, and I'm actually going to click on my applications one more time, and I'm going to show you that for every application, you have an option for Learn and Support. So I'll click on Learn and Support. And because of the work that I've been doing, or the tutorials that I've been taking, frankly, and showing off, Adobe has chosen these tutorials as tutorials that will help me move forward with my learning of Photoshop. Now, if I click Show All Tutorials, there are many, many more than just these 4. And each of these is very small, very short little tutorials, like how to edit a photo in Photoshop, just some very basic stuff. If you click Try It, you can access both the video of how to do it, and in some cases these tutorials even come with files that you can use to go ahead and do do what I do here, that you can get some experience and learn some muscle memory around working with Photoshop. Now there's one more place that I'm going to show you, but I'm going to save that to the end because I want to actually back all the way back up, start from scratch again, and this time let's talk about Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to go back to my iPad. I'm going to jump over to a thing called Adobe Shape. Now Adobe Shape is a really interesting tool. All you do is you point your phone or your iPad at something. And what I pointed it at in this case was there was a trash barrel outside that had a nice big crisp logo for WV logo. And I want a WV logo. It doesn't have to be perfect. I haven't gotten one from the marketing group, but I just want something that looks pretty good. But I want to use it in Adobe Illustrator. And the reason I want to use it in Adobe Illustrator is because Adobe Illustrator works with shapes. And those shapes can be resized, can be stretched, can be rotated without any loss of quality. Now, when you increase the size of a Photoshop file, it tends to start to look really blurry because it's what's called resolution dependent. But Illustrator will let you work with shapes that have no resolution whatsoever. So I could make something that's as big as the side of a wall or as small as the side of a pen, and it's still going to look nice and sharp and crisp every single time. However, I don't really know how to use all the tools in Illustrator, so that's why I'm starting with Adobe Shape, and I took a picture of something. It actually rendered it out. Now, I'm going to remove some of the stuff that's in it, but I want to point out that just by capturing this, it saved it into a thing called a library. And now this library, it's called the WVU library. That's my imaginary university that I use for demonstrations. Let's jump over to Illustrator and see what we have. It's actually a different file. In Adobe Illustrator, I actually have the WV logo right here, and I can just click and drag, which I've already done ahead of time, so it's on the page. So to use this shape, all I need to do, well, what I want to do first is just clean it up a little bit. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take my arrow tool, and you can see when I drag over those are little shapes that I can simply hit delete to remove. It looks like it left a little in there. Nope, that's good. A little bit of cleanup needed right there, some cleanup in aisle 6. Get rid of that. I'm going to get rid of the little dots down here. And you can see in the space of just a few moments, again, the amount of time it took me to kind of tell you what I was doing, I was able to get a nice working version of a WVU logo that I could start to work with in a variety of different projects. Now, what would those projects be? Well, let's start with this project here. And one of the things that Illustrator does very well is allows you to work with infographics. And it can do that because these shapes are something that you can create, you can move around and add some text to, and even in this case, a line. And because you can do that, kind of work with Illustrator, it's really great for creating sort of cartoony things that help you to understand something about, maybe in this case, an image. And we're going to drive towards that. But I want to show you how easy it is to actually work with Illustrator. So this is a shape. To get the shape, I simply took a shape tool, clicked and dragged, and there, I've got a shape. And if you can see these little targets, in fact, let me make this shape just a little bit bigger. And if you see these little bullseye targets here in the corner, they allow me to actually give the shape a nice rounded rectangle. So I'll delete that one because I want this shape to have that rounded rectangle look. And there you go. And what's really great about it is that the shape itself is something that is never sort of, I don't want to say it's never finished, but it's never stuck. I can always change my mind. So if I don't like that amount of roundedness, I can click and kind of put it all back. And now I've got a little bit less a rounded corner rectangle. And then, of course, the other great thing is that over time, as I build up these shapes and reuse them, want to reuse them, I can just simply copy and paste, and I have a nice consistent look for all of my little boxes that are going to contain text to point things out. Let's move over here to this line. This line is actually just a simple line stroke. Whoops, didn't mean to delete that. Actually, you know what? I will delete it because I'll go ahead and create it from scratch just so you can see how I get it. So I'll take the line tool. I'm going to click and drag. And the line has a 4-point stroke, which means it's got 4 points of thickness. But you know what? I want to use that as an arrow. And with that selected, actually, the other thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just send that to the back because I want it to sit behind the box, and you'll see why in just a moment. So now that I've got that created and selected, all I need to do is, or what I want to do is add an arrowhead. So I'm just going to click on this little box that says stroke. And I've got arrowheads built into Illustrator for me that I can go ahead and select. And then what's really nice is that as I work with this, I can move the arrow around. So I've got this nice sort of grouped set of elements that I can use. And I can copy and paste this and use it over and over again. And because the text here is simply text, I can take my text tool, come over here, double click, and say something like impact. Now I've got a little sort of thought balloon or explainer graphic that I can use in conjunction with, say, a graphic element. Now, before I go any further with that, what I want to show you is a thing called graphic styles. So what I've done is, in using Illustrator's capabilities to do things like gradients and such, I created what's called a graphic style. And the great thing about a graphic style is that I can select this object, choose the style, and by choosing the style, do it this way just to take it out of here so you can see it. By selecting the style, or by using the style here I created in Illustrator, I have the ability to get a nice consistent look and feel every time I want to go ahead and create one of these things. So instead of having to each time figure out exactly what the gradient was, how thick the black stroke was, etc., all I need to do is go ahead and apply the graphic style. Now, to quickly show you how easy it is to create the graphic style, I'm going to create a box. I'm just going to give it a solid color fill this time. Nice gauche green that's kind of hard to look at. And close this up, open my graphic styles panel, grab this element, drag it over top of there and let go, and I've just created a graphic style that I can reuse over and over and over again. In fact, it's possible even to share these graphic styles with others. Now, Illustrator is a great tool on its own, but Illustrator really starts to shine. I'm going to turn off some layers here and turn on some other layers to give you a finished look at, to give you a look at the finished version of this, because, there we go. What I wanted to show, let me delete that, was how you can start to combine things like a Photoshop file by choosing File, Place a Photoshop file right here in Illustrator, and then use your graphic capabilities inside Adobe Illustrator to create a very nice looking explainer, where in this case I'm pointing out the impact of the, in this case, this hydrogen bomb. So Adobe Illustrator is really great for doing those kinds of things where you might have information that you need to highlight, you want to be able to customize it, you want to be able to use text and things like that, and you can then begin to combine those with Photoshop. But let's take this even a step further, because Illustrator really shines when it comes to things like this. So this is an example of a graph that I've created. It's a graph that is data-driven. In fact, if I right-click on it and choose Data, you can see this is the actual data. And I'll show you that this is live by coming here and typing in 2, clicking on the check plus, and you'll see that that bar changed its height. Okay, great. But it's pretty boring. And yes, I could apply colors and gradients and things to it, but what I really want to do is take advantage of the fact that Illustrator comes with a whole set of what are called symbols. And I'm going to open up the Mad Science symbol library, and you'll see that there is an atomic, or an atom. It's a sort of a wacky-looking cartoony atom. What I'd really like to be able to do is to turn these bars into atoms. So I'm going to double-click, or I'm going to delete that. I'm going to select this again, right-click, and choose Column. And because I've turned that atom into a column design, and I want it to be repeating, I want each design to represent one unit, and I want it to chop the design off at the top if there's something that's not a full unit. Click Go, and there you go. Now I've got something that is much more visually appealing and ties this graph to the concept of an atomic explosion. Now, using the white arrow key or the white arrow tool again, I can delete all of the key here, the scale and things like that. I've already done that ahead of time just for the sake of time. So what I'm going to do here is just turn this off and turn the finished version of this back on. And you can see that I combined the graph, a live data graph. I could select this and change the data numbers, but I've combined the atom, the data, and the Photoshop file together to tell a story in a much more quick and easy to access way than by including long paragraphs of text or even just having the boring bar chart that really doesn't grab your attention. So Adobe Illustrator, whether you want to just capture some shapes and begin to work with them, or if you want to make some shapes and then use those for your infographics, or you want to start getting more experienced with it, you can use it to create these wonderfully data-driven graphic elements that you can apply to the work that you're doing. And the reason that I left us on data-driven graphics is because there is a lot of emphasis on infographics and how valuable they are to telling what otherwise might be a complicated story that might be difficult to describe. A picture is worth 1,000 words. So we're going to shift gears, or I'll point out just quickly by backing up that if you want to learn more about Illustrator, I would encourage you to come to adobe.com, and then you can click on the Illustrator Learn and Support, and you'll find that there are many, many tutorials to help you both get started and then take some of those next interesting steps to creating some really wonderful infographics and other cartoon-like graphics. The final product that I wanted to give you a look at here in this session today is Adobe Acrobat. And there's a couple of things about Acrobat that I want to point out that not a lot of people understand. So first off, Adobe Acrobat allows you to do more than simply create a PDF. Although I'm going to start by creating a PDF because one of the things I like about using Acrobat in conjunction with some of the files that maybe I created in Photoshop and or Illustrator is that I can very quickly bring those all together and turn them into a presentation. Let me show you how. File, and what I'm going to do is select Create, PDF, or Combine Files into a single PDF. I'm going to select Add Files, and the great thing about what I'm about to do is that these files can be a variety of different file types. So Ryan, who's one of the designers here at the school, has provided me some of the files that he worked with. And so these are some Photoshop files, and I want to do a presentation based on those. And some of them are JPEG, some of them are Photoshop, and some of them are not. So I'm just going to choose these 4 here. I'm going to click Add Files, and I'm going to select Combine Files. So what I've just made is a single PDF file that is of all of those original images. I haven't had to take them, convert them to something like PNG, drop them into PowerPoint, and save that. These are ready to go. Now, when I say ready to go, I don't mean I can just send this to you, though I can do that. In fact, one of the new features of Adobe Acrobat DC is the ability to save a file, but also to save it and, in this case, send it and track it. So in other words, I can send it up to a cloud location, send out a link so that someone else could pull it down. But that's not really what I want to do with it. What I want to do is go into full screen mode and use the PDF as a presentation. And because I can combine just about anything or convert just about anything into a PDF, I can build a presentation from a wide variety of different file types. I don't have to actually convert them to or bring them into PowerPoint. I can convert them directly to PDF, bring them together, and start working with them. And then there's some other things about this process that you can make valuable. If I want to share this presentation with somebody else, I might want to help them understand what it is they're looking at. So if you look here, these are our bookmarks. These bookmarks are kind of generic. I'm just going to delete them, because what I want to do is go to one of the images that is particularly interesting to me. We'll go to this one here, and I'm going to create my own bookmark. I'm going to call this bookmark Solvents Data Sheet. But what I really want you to do is to, oops, that's the search function. I'm just going to zoom in here. And I'm going to put this right there in the middle. I really want you to look at the cans to make sure you like that. I want you to make sure you like that treatment. I'm going to create a new bookmark, and we'll just call it Can Treatment. And I'm going to grab that bookmark and nest it with the other bookmark. So basically what I'm doing is I'm starting to create a way to walk you through this document that really doesn't have anything to do with page order, has much more to do with what it is I'd like you to see. And then last but not least with this process, I'm going to put a big red circle around this because I really want to focus your attention on this. And, oh, geez, I'm quite sure I can remember how to do that. I don't need to. With the new Acrobat interface, I can just type in the word pencil, and it'll come up, and this is the draw tool, the tool that I'm looking for. And I can just put a nice big red circle around that. And once you click on the bookmark, this should make it pretty apparent what it is I'm hoping that you'll look at or focus your attention on here inside Acrobat. So at very least, you can start to take content from a variety of places. And of course, I'm showing Adobe content, but you know what? You can convert a Word file to PDF. You can actually, if you want, you can actually attach that Word file to the PDF so that people have that as well. So you can create essentially a portfolio that either tells a story, is about a report, or maybe it's a portfolio of assets that I want you to use on a particular project that we're both working on together. So that's one thing that Acrobat can do very well. But here's another thing. So I'm going to open a recent file that I've been working on. And I've got all of my recent files here. And what I've got here is, let me make sure I grab the correct one. Yep. So this is a file that started its life, in fact it still is, a piece of paper. So I scanned it using just a typical scanner, or actually with Acrobat Mobile I could have shot it with the camera on my iPad or iPhone. In this case I scanned it. But what I need to do is turn it into something that's digital. This is not a digital file. This file is actually sort of just a big picture. So I know that I want to, OCR I think is what I want to do. So I'm going to type in OCR. And there's a thing called recognize text. And by typing it in, or by giving you that search capability, if you're not that familiar with Acrobat, we've tried to kind of think about all the ways you might describe recognize text to yourself and give you a way to just type that in and find the tool that you're looking for, in this case, recognize text. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. There are a lot of settings that I'm not going to take time to get into here, but I'm just going to click on recognize text. And what Acrobat's going to do is it's going to go through and it's going to recognize all of those letters and turn it into truly digital text. And why might I do that? Well, there's a couple of reasons you might want to do that. One, it makes the document searchable. So if I do Command F to find something, I can type in the word ozone, and it finds the word ozone in the places where the word ozone exists. Before I had done the recognize text, it would have said there's no ozone in this document, even though I can clearly read it. And that's because, again, it was just a picture of the text. It wasn't actual text. But the other thing that I like about this is that it actually hasn't done anything to the document. So for words that it could not understand for some reason, like this formula, it just left a picture in place. So the document looks exactly like the piece of paper, yet now it's digital. Now it's something that I can share with something like maybe Send and Track, or I can just email it if that's what I want to do. And when I get it into someone's hands, they can actually do a Command F to find the content that they're looking for among the pages of what was a workshop, in this case, on ozone generation. So this is a way to create PDFs, but really Acrobat is about manipulating those PDFs to make them more valuable, make them easier for the person that you want to have them to be able to use them, to be able to get the information from them that they want. Now, another thing that I might want to do to enhance this document, just click on the plus sign there, is type in the word movie. Nope, movie doesn't come up, so we'll try video. There we go. Add video. So what I want this document to be is more of an electronic document, an e-portfolio, however you want to describe that. So I'm going to click Add Video, and really I've got a little video that kind of demonstrates this nicely. So I'm going to click and drag right here, and I'm going to click Choose, and it'll take me just a second to get to it. There we go. And this is a lab video. Now, it's a lab video that I happen to create with Adobe Premiere Pro, though, frankly, any video that, how do I want to say this, any video that an iPad, for example, can play, you can drop in. So I'm going to click Open, click OK, and now when the user comes to this page, they can click to activate, and they'll be able to watch a little movie. And I'll just go ahead and scrub that forward so you can see that there's a little movie right there that they can watch. So instead of asking someone to parse just a diagram, which might be complex, it might not work, I mean, I might not be able to understand it, I can actually drop a movie in to show you exactly how to accomplish or how to do the things that I'm trying to get you to do. So a PDF or Acrobat allows you to take a PDF, certainly create PDF from just about anything, but turn that PDF into something that's much, much more valuable to the person who has to look at that PDF. Now, speaking of valuable, there's one last thing about Acrobat that I want to show you, and that is forms. So what I have here is it's an assessment sheet from one of your instructors, I believe it was from Ryan, that allows you to assess a student's work, in this case specifically for Photoshop. And this is great. I can print this out and I can fill it in and keep the grade. But what you might not realize is that Acrobat will actually allow me to turn this into a form that I can fill or I can complete right here on the computer, or if I have the access to the form on my iPad, I can actually complete it on my iPad in Acrobat Mobile. To convert it into a form, let me show you how to do it. Now, I can click on Prepare Form, but again, if I can't remember where that is, I can just type in the word Form, and I want to create a form from this document, and bang, I'm pretty much done. Now, I'm going to go ahead and preview this form and show you that I can type in, I'll be the student here. It's period 4. And this is where things get really interesting. And I'm not going to build this whole thing because I just don't have the time to complete it. What I'm going to do is go back to Edit, and I want to show you that if I double-click on any one of these form elements, I can select Calculate, and I can calculate that the sum is of the form fields that I wanted to add up. Now, I've already done this ahead of time, so let me close this up. Let me show you the version of this that I did ahead of time. Here it is right here. This is the one I was working on. Nope. Yeah, this is okay. So this is the one that I've already done. And all I did was I just selected this and chose all of these to add to the grade field. So if I feel like the student out of 10 points really only got 8 out of this for some reason, I can hit the Tab key and they got 5 out of this or 5 out of this. Then I'll just add some quick numbers down here. And you'll see that by the time I am done entering the numbers that I want to give the student, Acrobat and the form that I created has already completed the grade that I'm going to offer that student for this particular project. And then I can just simply save it, send it off to the student, and if I want, I can even lock it at this point so that the student can't come in and edit any of these and give him or herself a better grade. So with Acrobat and the Forms technology, not only can I turn something from a form that you would have to print and fill out, but I can use the very quick tools in Acrobat to convert this from a paper-based form to a digital form and I can start to work with the fields here to turn it into a nice little application that allows you to get the result that you're looking for, not just give you something to fill in and complete. So those are just some really quick looks at these tools in action and what they're capable of. What I want to do is point out one more resource that we have for you that I think is probably our most underutilized, not underutilized, it's one of our best kept secrets, unless you're one of the 200,000 people that are a part of the Adobe Education Exchange. The Adobe Education Exchange is a free website that you can access with or without an Adobe ID. You can see that I've logged in. There's my picture. And what it's designed to do is to give you access to thousands of resources created not by Adobe, but created by people like yourselves who might want to use Photoshop in class. So for example, I'm teaching a humanities class, and I'm not sure exactly how to take advantage of this digital media that now I have access to. And frankly, the students that you're working with today come to school awash in this stuff. They come to school knowing that video is important, that audio is important through podcasts and YouTube, and that images are important because they live in a world of images with Instagram and things like that. So how do you turn that passion for those things into learning? Well, here are some ways that you can do that. So for example, cinemagraphs in Photoshop. This tutorial will talk to you about the process of creating a cinemagraph, but it also helps you to understand why you might do such a thing. Now, I searched on humanities, but maybe I want to focus on a particular product. In this case, I'll focus my efforts on Photoshop. And what I have is a much smaller list of things that I can start to poke through and start grabbing to see, if I might be able to make use of this content in the classroom. Now, the reason that I mentioned that you might want to log in is because I'm going to click over here on My Exchange, and you can see that I have 10 favorites. So what that does is, if I click on one particular choice here, we'll do I'll do funny face with veggies and fruit. I think that's probably a lower grade level thing. Here it is, yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So probably a little young for your audience, but still I like it. So I'm going to click on it because I want to read more about it. Once I've read more about it, I kind of like it, so I'm going to go ahead and favorite it. Once I've favorited it, over here at My Exchange, I click on Favorites, and it will open up and show me all of the things that I have favorited as projects. Now, maybe I'm just looking through. I haven't had really a chance to explore them, but I know that I might want to explore them, so I can go ahead and explore them later. And there you have funny face with veggies and fruit. I can take a look at that, see if there's anything from that I can use at the college level. Maybe not, and if I don't want it, or if I don't like it anymore, I can just go ahead and click to unfavorite it, and it will disappear from my favorites list. So those are two things about the EdXchange that are really keen, but this is where I think the EdXchange really begins to become a valuable resource to you, and that is through the discussions. Now, to participate in discussions, you actually do need an Adobe ID. That's free. You don't have to pay for that. But the reason we do that is so that we can identify you, so in case you're out there threatening the president or something like that, we can kick you out of the exchange by who you are. But these discussions are fantastic because what you can do is, for example, need help for how-to. Not sure exactly what that is, but I can click on that. Someone started that as a discussion because apparently they needed help with something and wanted to know how to do something. So you can start to get help from the various people out there who are using Adobe tools in class, or at least to augment classroom work in such a way that they've been successful and they're willing to share that. And the other thing that I want to point out is that I hope that some of you, maybe all of you, will start doing some wonderful things with the Adobe tools that you've been provided and add to the exchange, because with some 200,000 members, all of the content is coming from people like yourselves who are professional educators, not Adobe salespeople. And I think that's pretty keen. And then the final thing about the EdXchange that I want to point out is that we have a variety of professional development that goes beyond those tutorials that I talked about in two different very specific and important ways. One, these are much more process-driven. It's not the exact word I'm looking for, but they're much more content or context-driven. That's the word I was looking for. In other words, the workshops are designed to help you to do something other than learn to use a specific tool in the application. The tutorials are much more about, here's the tool and how to use it. These are why to use the applications in specific situations. Now, many of these workshops are self-paced, so you can sign up for them, start the workshop, work through. You can actually gain badges and things like that. But the other thing that I like about these workshops is that these workshops are about using these tools in education. So when I say they're context-driven, it's projects that you're working on, but the projects themselves are designed to support some type of educational outcome or desired outcome. So I would encourage you, if you do nothing other than, first off, get the software installed on your system from IT, because that's a good start. Second off, take a look at the Adobe Education Exchange, because it will provide you some really great ideas about how, or maybe even why, to do stuff like this, because even though it looks cool, it might not be obvious how you might want to use it in the classroom. That's what the Adobe Education Exchange can help you with. So I'm about a minute over my allotted time, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I want to thank you very much for spending some time or watching this recording, if you're seeing this as a recorded session. And thank you for exploring the Adobe tools. I think by doing so, you'll find that some of the projects that you're working on can be a lot more fun. So signing off, take care, and goodbye.